I will be your dark side. What would happen to the story of Beauty and the Beast if the beauty hadn't appeared? You know the story. There was a time when his face was handsome and his palace was pleasant, but that was before the curse. Before the shadows fell on the castle of the prince, before the shadows fell on the heart of the prince. And when the darkness fell, he hid, secluded in his castle. He was left with glistening snout and curly tusks and in a continuous bad mood. But all that changed when the girl came. I wonder what had happened to the beast if the beauty hadn't appeared. Better yet, what would have happened if she hadn't cared? And who would have blamed her if she hadn't? He was such, he was such a beast. He was hairy and drooling and roaring and defying, and she was a beauty, stunningly gorgeous, we're told, contagiously kind. If ever two people lived up to their names, didn't the beauty and the beast? Who would have blamed her if she hadn't cared? But she did care. And because the beauty loved the beast then became more beautiful himself. The story's familiar, not just because it's a fairy tale. It's familiar because it reminds us of ourselves. There is a beast within each of us. It wasn't always so. There was a time when humanity's face was beautiful and the palace pleasant. But that was before the curse, before the shadow fell across the Garden of Adam, before the shadow fell across the heart of Adam. And ever since the curse, we've all been different. Beastly, ugly, defiant, and angry. We do things we know we shouldn't do, and then we wonder why we did them. The ugly part of me sure showed his beastly face the other night. I was driving on a 2-lane road that was about to become a single lane. A woman in the car beside me was in that lane that continued. I was in the one that stopped. I needed to be ahead of her. My schedule was no doubt more important than hers. After all, am I not a man of the cloth? Am I not a courier of compassion, an ambassador of peace? So I floored it, and guess what? She did too. When my lane ended, she was a fender ahead of me. I growled and slowed and had to let her go ahead, and over her shadow she gave me a sweet little bye-bye wave. I started to dim my headlights, then I paused. The sinister part of me said, wait a minute. Am I not called to shed light on dark places, illuminate the shadows? So I put a little high beam in her rearview mirror. She then retaliated by slowing down to a crawl. This woman was mean. She couldn't have cared less if the whole city of San Antonio was late. And she wasn't going to go beyond 15 miles per hour. And I wasn't going to take my lights out of her rearview mirror. Like two stubborn donkeys, she kept it slow and I kept it bright. Also, after more uncanny thoughts passed than I dare confess, the road widened and I started to pass. Wouldn't you know it? A red light left the two of us side by side at an intersection. What happened next contains both good news and bad. The good news is she waved at me. The bad news is her wave was not one you would want to imitate. Moments later, conviction surfaced. Why did I do that? I'm typically a calm guy, but for 15 minutes, I was a beast. Only two facts comforted me. One was, I didn't have a fish symbol on my car. And two, the Apostle Paul had had similar struggles. Quoting, I do not do what I want to do, and I often do things that I hate, from Romans 7:15. Ever felt like saying those words? Well, if so, you're in good company. Paul isn't the only person in the Bible who wrestled with the beast within. It's hard to find a page in Scripture where the animal doesn't bare his teeth. King Saul chasing young David with a spear, Shechem raping Dinah's brother, the sons of Jacob, then murdering him and his friend, Lot selling out to Sodom and then getting out of Sodom, Herod murdering Bethlehem toddlers, another Herod murdering Jesus' cousin. If the Bible is called the good book, it's not because its people are, Blood runs as freely through the stories as the ink through the quills that penned them. But the evil of the beast was never so raw as on the day that our Christ died. The disciples were first fast asleep, then fast afoot. Herod wanted a show, Pilate wanted out, and the soldiers, they wanted blood. So they scourged him. The legionnaires' whip consisted of leather straps with lead balls on each end. His goal was singular: beat the accused within an inch of his death and then stop. 39 lashes were allowed, but were seldom needed. A centurion was to monitor the prisoner's status. No doubt Jesus was near death that day when his hands were untied and he slumped to the ground. The whipping was the first deed of the soldiers. The crucifixion was the third. No, I didn't skip the second. We'll go back to that in a moment. Though his back was ribboned with wounds, the soldiers loaded the crossbeam on Jesus' shoulders and marched him to the place of the skull and then executed him. We don't fault the soldiers for these two actions. After all, they were following their orders. But what's hard to understand is what they did in between. And here is Matthew's description. Jesus was beaten with whips and handed over to the soldiers to be crucified. The governor's soldiers took Jesus into the governor's palace, and they all gathered around him. They took off his clothes and put a red robe on him, and using thorny branches, they made a crown, put it on his head, and put his stick in his right hand. Then the soldiers bowed before Jesus and made fun of him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews," and they spat on Jesus. Then they took his stick and began to beat him across the head. And after they finished, the soldiers took off the robe, put his own clothes back on him, and led him away to be crucified.